Welcome, modern day mystics, fellow truth seekers. James and Justin here. It has been a while since we have reacted to a Swami Tadatmananda video. This video is titled Tathastu, Unconditional Acceptance. So this is a little bit of a lengthy one. We're going to stop it probably about halfway through and then we'll unpack it. All right, let's get into it.
Tathastu is an ancient Sanskrit expression formed from two words, astu, let it be, and tata, in such a manner. It's usually translated, let it be so, or so be it. When Janaka, the wise king of Mithila, was approached in his palace by destitute subjects who begged for his help, he replied, Tathastu. With these words, King Janaka granted their requests and instructed his ministers to provide for all their needs. Tathastu is also used to indicate unconditional acceptance of a particular situation. For example, when King Janaka was informed that his palace was on fire, he simply said, Tathastu. He accepted the situation unconditionally because the enlightened king had no attachment to his palace or to anything else. According to the teachings of Advaita Vedanta, unconditional acceptance of life's many difficulties is the key to complete freedom from suffering. Unconditional acceptance is the ability to embrace any experience, no matter how physically or emotionally painful it might be, but without feeling any hurt or sadness, without feeling disturbed or resentful, without wanting the situation to be different in any way whatsoever. Let's discuss how suffering can be overcome through unconditional acceptance. First of all, we have to understand the difference between pain and suffering. Suppose I have a really bad headache, and I say to myself, "Oh, my head is throbbing. I feel so miserable, I can't stand it." Pain, in this case, is the excruciating sensation of throbbing inside my head and at my temples. Suffering, on the other hand, is how I happen to react to that pain, by feeling irritated, distressed, or even tormented by the headache. Such reactions would make me feel even worse. But suppose I didn't react like that. If I could somehow accept the headache without reacting negatively, then I would not feel distressed or tormented by it. I would still feel the throbbing in my head, but without suffering because of it, without whining or complaining, without feeling disturbed at all. The same holds true for emotional pain. It's entirely possible to feel the terrible heartache of losing a loved one, but without feeling all the sorrow and grief that usually arises at times of loss and hangs on for a long time afterwards. But being free from grief and sorrow is possible only with unconditional acceptance of the loss. You can be completely free from suffering if your negative reactions like sadness, hurt, anger, resentment, and so on can somehow be replaced by unconditional acceptance. But how can you accept the non-stop throbbing of a bad headache or the terrible heartache of losing a loved one? That kind of acceptance is not a matter of choice. You can't simply decide to accept severe pain or terrible heartache. Fortunately, the teachings of Vedanta can lead you to discover how pain and heartache don't truly affect you in an essential way. They can't affect your true self, your fundamental nature as pure consciousness, as we'll discuss shortly. By discovering your true divine nature, Atma, it's possible to remain completely undisturbed and perfectly content even when your head is pounding or your heart is breaking. Vedanta's solution to the problem of suffering is twofold. First is to understand the inevitability of pain and heartache, which afflict us all. Anyone who has a head is subject to headaches, and anyone who has emotions is subject to heartaches. Understanding the inevitability of pain and heartbreak is absolutely necessary to avoid a common but really miserable kind of suffering. That suffering is usually expressed with the words, "Why me? Why did this happen to me?" So many people are tormented by those thoughts when they're diagnosed with cancer or another serious illness. But the fact is, the mutations that create malignant cancer cells are natural. Really speaking, every kind of illness can be said to be natural in the sense that it arises according to the laws of nature and the laws of karma. When you clearly understand the fact that illness is both natural and inevitable.
So I find this video pretty, like, the timing auspicious or just synchronistic, because I feel like I just got some kind of disheartening, emotionally painful news, just on a personal level. And even as I'm watching this, there's a couple of things that stand out. One is this idea that awareness, or just the opposite of ignorance in some sense, can put you in a state where you're sort of above the intensity of the situation. Like, to illustrate that, I'll just take video games, right? You take somebody that's really invested in a game and they're slamming the controller down and their ego's involved in it and they really want to beat a game, and then all of a sudden they realize it's just a game or something, or maybe they even put some cheat codes in and the game becomes super easy and they get detached from the importance of the game. But the byproduct of that is like detachment. You might be like, I just don't even play a video game anymore. Like, sometimes being out of the intensity of a situation can make you sort of aloof, or, create a kind of ennui. Sometimes people pick things to be intense about, to care about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then on the other thing that is notable about this is I can grasp what he's saying and trying to get, like, taking the importance of something and disidentifying with the situation to some degree. But oddly enough, I find at a physiological level, there's still an effect. Like, even if I can detach from the situation, my body is almost reacting to the emotional charge of the information. Like, oh, I'm still sort of humming from the emotional state my body was in because of the circumstance. You know, like, you could say right now there's a house on fire right now, and you're like, there might be a slight spike in emotions. But if it's like your house is on fire, your emotions spike. And even if you got it under control or someone came along and said it's not, you might be like, ooh,
there's like a emotional wind down, and I don't know, I can't chill out now. That was so shocking.
Yeah.
So your body reacts, and you can actually mess with people in this way. This is probably a little demonic for me to say, but it's good to be aware of, because people can manipulate you that way. If they know that you're reactive, they can play you like a puppet. If I say this to this person, they'll behave a certain way. That's also a factor. So you might want to learn the skill of detachment to some degree, just to be not so exploitable.
Yeah. Well, a part of this, which kind of sometimes confuses me, is the aspect of some type of divine revelation being necessary in order for you to achieve what he's talking about in terms of kind of like this detachment. And I'm sure he's going to get to it. I'm sure that's where this is headed, is to like, somehow lead you or push you to seek towards some type of understanding that helps you surrender to all the things that are going on that cause you so much pain, and just to accept things. But until you get to that point, I feel like you're just a sucker. All of us are kind of like trapped by the pain and the terrible things that happen to us, unless we have this divine revelation or awakening or enlightenment or whatever he's talking about.
I don't think it has to be divine. I think that there's secular books that have been written about this. For some reason, the Soma method or the Sedona method. I think there's a book called the Sedona method that talks about contraction and release and learning how to detach emotionally from things, so that you can. Because
I could have maybe called it mystical revelation, or I don't know.
Well, yeah,
I could have called it.
No, it does get wrapped in there.
Yeah.
Like some people might suggest, take something that could be regarded as a psychological phenomenon and put it into the realm of spiritual.
Yeah.
But on a physical spiritual, like on a physical psychological level, there's even techniques that you can do to learn how to be a little more detached. I think some people learn these things naturally. Take somebody that's faced certain types of trauma at a young age, and they might learn to detach emotionally so that they're not affected in some way. The bottom line is, I still seem to find use for a range of emotions, like ones associated with adrenaline, maybe even frustration, maybe worry. I still use those emotions every now and then. And somebody might be like, that's bad. It's bad feelings to have. But they can be, I don't think they would be there if there were zero use for them. Like especially something like worry. There's some wise teachings regarding the feeling of worry. Like you ought not to worry, and it's good to know how to get away from worry. But I can think of times where worry caused me to go deep into contemplation about a problem, and then eventually a solution arrives. If I was not worried, if I was detached from it and like didn't care or something, I might not ever arrive at a solution.
Yeah.
And then there's greater and greater principles to explore. But I'm just saying, on an honesty level, I still use emotions like sadness.
Well, it seems obvious. Take fear, burning stove. You don't want to have a fearful respect of a burning stove, so you don't burn yourself.
Right, but maybe that guy would say Tathastu.
Yeah.
Maybe they'd be like, your house is burning. You might go Tathastu.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a great wisdom in that. And you know what? After all, to get to the point where you say, I don't even care if my house is on fire. So maybe to get to the point where you can say Tathastu to some dramatic things, maybe it does require a spiritual gestalt. Maybe it does require like a big event spiritually to happen to get to the ultimate level of letting go. Yeah. There's tricks you can do in a psychological level, and there's books you can read, but maybe for the highest level of that does take something that's in the realm of spiritual, because it's so profound a change.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we'll carry on. We'll see what Swami Tadatmananda has to say about it.
Then, instead of asking, why me, you will instead be able to ask, why not me? Am I so special that I should somehow be exempted or immune to the problems that can afflict everyone else? In addition to understanding the inevitability of pain and heartache, Vedanta's solution to the problem of suffering has a second part that's even more important. Much of Vedanta's teachings are focused on the practice of self-inquiry, a practice called Atma Vichara. The goal of this practice is to discover your true divine nature, your true self, Atma. With the help of Vedantic teachings, you can eventually discover that your true nature is unborn, uncreated, vast, boundaryless, and utterly unaffected by the problems of your body, mind, and the world around you. That practice has been described at great length in many of my other videos, so we won't dwell on it here. The ultimate outcome of the practice of self-inquiry is an extraordinary transformation of how you see yourself in relationship to your own body and mind. First of all, you come to understand that, in essence, you are a conscious being completely independent of your body. You abide inside your body, seeing the images that fall upon your eyes, hearing the sounds that reach your ears, and commanding the movements of your limbs. In this way, you come to understand that your body is just a vehicle for you, like a car. After you buy a new car, you drive it around, you fill it with fuel, and you get it repaired as required. In the same way, after you're born with a new body, you move it around, you feed it, and you get medical treatment as required. When an old car can no longer be repaired, you buy a new one. So too, when your old body can no longer be kept alive through medical treatments, you drop it at the time of death and acquire a new one, according to your karma. The practice of self-inquiry not only transforms your relationship with your body, but it also transforms your relationship with your mind. You ultimately discover that you are ever-present, unchanging consciousness. The consciousness that reveals everything that happens in your mind, like your thoughts and emotions. As pure consciousness, whatever happens in your mind does not truly affect you, the awareful witness or conscious observer, called Sakshi. Like sunlight isn't affected by anything it happens to shine upon, in the same way, the so-called light of consciousness reveals your thoughts and emotions without being affected by them in any way whatsoever. This is Vedanta's twofold solution to the problem of suffering. First, knowing the inevitability of pain and heartache, and second, radically transforming your relationship with your body and mind. These realizations can lead you to a state of unconditional acceptance, a state of enlightenment in which you remain utterly untouched by suffering. A wonderful example of unconditional acceptance is found towards the end of the great epic Mahabharata. After the bloody war between the Kauravas and Pandavas came to an end, all 100 sons of King Dhritarashtra and Queen Gandhari lay dead on the battlefield. The king requested Sri Krishna to comfort and console Gandhari, who was holding the lifeless body of her eldest son, Duryodhana, in her arms. Gandhari was overcome by grief, and she falsely accused Sri Krishna of deliberately allowing the war to take place when he should have prevented it. Her deep anguish drove Gandhari to curse Sri Krishna and his entire clan to be killed, like her sons had been killed. In response to her curse, Sri Krishna spoke to her tenderly, without a trace of anger on his face, saying, "All of us will certainly die, according to our own karma." Not surprisingly, Sri Krishna unconditionally accepted Gandhari's curse. Okay, sometimes teachings like these can be conveyed in a tremendously powerful way when they're expressed in poems or songs, because poetry and music speaks directly to our hearts, to our emotions. It's not surprising that Adi Shankara and other great teachers composed deeply emotional hymns in praise of many different deities. A few years ago, I composed a Sanskrit hymn on unconditional acceptance, a hymn in praise of Ishvara as Vidhata. Vidhata is a name for the Supreme Being who governs the universe with his infinite intelligence, and who determines the laws of nature and the laws of karma. The hymn is called Vidhata Shatkam, a set of 6 verses in praise of Vidhata. To make it more accessible, I also composed an English translation that follows the meter of the original so that it can be chanted or sung in the same way as the Sanskrit. The English refrain says, "This world was thus fashioned by you, Tathastu." The refrain praises Ishvara, who is manifest as the intelligent order that governs the universe. And with the word Tathastu, the hymn expresses our unconditional acceptance of that divine order. Each of its 6 verses describes an aspect of that order by depicting one of the many cycles or patterns that regularly occur in our lives. I hope you enjoy it.
Before we get into the song here, or the hymn here, is there any other notes that you'd like to add towards what he's saying?
No, I don't think I can add to it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because we've listened to a lot of these guys now, and when you take some of the Western teachers mixed with some of the Eastern teachings, I wonder, because it seems like the Western teachers seem to take out all the God aspect. They just go straight to the point. But the more you listen to them, he's very well spoken, Tadatmananda. So he kind of he gives you that non-dual awakening message pretty solid and bang on. Do you have to have all the Eastern understanding of the gods and the old scriptures and stuff like that? Because there are Western teachers out there that don't go that far. They're pretty much just telling you exactly what he said without all that stuff. Just kind of hitting you straight with the point of awakening and things you can do to help wake up. But again, that's also a frustrating thing. That is for me anyway, is that a lot of these guys talk about awakening and that cosmic consciousness, getting to that understanding. And as someone who isn't proclaiming that he's arrived there yet, and I've heard a lot of this stuff, it's challenging sometimes. It's how do you know? How do you know when you get there? I guess you just know, but and it's not like I'm giving up. I'm just saying I find it frustrating sometimes. The talk about coming to this awakening experience. It's all about getting to that awakening experience, and until you get there, almost it's I guess you're gonna suffer.
How do you know when you're president?
You're crowned president.
Yeah. How do you know when you're cool?
I don't know. Does everyone tell you you're cool?
Everyone tells you you're cool, I guess.
Yeah.
But what difference does that make? It's like, you're going to wait for everybody else to tell you you're something for you to know that you're that thing?
Yeah.
And that is something that, I think probably has the potential to irritate people, because I see, correct me if I'm wrong, or, I feel like you would recognize this. Sometimes people get into a thing about, like, every now and then we'll encounter a person that will, like, proclaim they're enlightened. We'll come across somebody and they'll be like, I'm actually enlightened.
Yeah.
And people take contention with that.
Yeah.
And so part of the game becomes you can't actually say you're enlightened. It's
Yeah.
like, well, then what is it then?
Yeah.
If you can't say you're it depends on other people saying you're it.
Yeah.
That's a tricky little thing, I think, how could you argue with somebody that's like, if I ask you, are you well? Are you at peace right now? And if you're like, yeah, then what the hell difference does it make? If you want to imagine a kingdom of emerald right now, can you do it? Oh, give me a sec. Yeah, I can imagine a kingdom emerald. Can you play with your imagination to some degree to like feel like you're inhabiting that kingdom and at peace, and you're aware of your surroundings, and you're aware of your body, and you take pleasure in a simple acknowledgement of your breath? Like, what really more needs to be added to it? It seems like things need to be added to people that are in distress. People that are like disturbed are the ones seeking the peace. If peace is upon you, why complicate it?
Yeah.
Does that answer at all what you're saying?
Yeah, partially.
Like, you have to introduce disruption if you're at peace. And if you're not at peace, behold, you're the seeker of peace.
Yeah.
If you're not at peace and you're like asking and seeking and reading, then that's what you are. Yeah. If you're at peace, all of a sudden you might be surrounded by people going, how do I have some peace too?
Are you making kind of like a statement towards like sometimes you can come to an awakened state and then you can become unawakened again? You think that happens?
I'm saying sometimes people exit the fold. Not always. Sometimes people exit society or exit the fold, and they're regarded as hermetic or they're regarded as fringe weirdos. But every now and then somebody sort of exits the fold. And the thing that starts drawing attention first is that they seem to ostensibly have found the peace.
Yeah.
It's like, this guy's been meditating for 4 days. Yeah. There's tears rolling down his face. He's having a satori or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the questions start asking. And, there's different paths to that. Some people take the path of learning. Some people take like initiatory paths. But I'm saying there are examples of people that just seem to have stumbled upon it. That sometimes it follows a very hard time. Yeah. Sometimes somebody will be like, I hit rock bottom, and then I woke up the next day.
I feel like that's the majority of the cases from what I hear.
Well, what greater relief is there than losing all those obligations? Losing, like I'm not inviting losing the things you care about. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying, so therefore give up all the things you care about in your life.
Yeah.
But I'm saying elation, the same way as taking off a tight pair of shoes feels nice, it's an oscillating effect. The pressure of intensity maybe in the seeking process, when it dawns on you, I can just take a deep breath and have that I'm just arrived at home feeling right now. You go, is it really as simple as that? Is it really as simple as just stepping into peace and letting go? Well, there's some school of thought that might make arguments for that, and then there's some school of thought that would say no, it's a process, and maybe it's both.
Vasantam parityajya dharma sharacha. As springtime surrenders to summer and fall, in antam grisitva piratri pratana, and sunsets are swallowed by night's murky sprawl. Jaramrityu janmani varjayeta, birth, death, and old age, these none can forestall. Prapanchas tvaya srishta hitam tathastu. This world was thus fashioned by you, Tathastu.
prapanchastvaya srishta hitam tathastu. Jayanto hi labha palantascha nasho. Our gains lead to losses, each loss to some gain. Dhruvam siddhya siddhi yatha varshapata. Successes and failures are certain as rain. Yatha karma jata sato no dvajeran. Such karma we're born with no scope to complain. Prapanchastvaya srishta hitam tathastu. This world was thus fashioned by you, tathastu. Prapanchastvaya srishta hitam tathastu. Yada satyamarganarastu pramanti. While treading the true path of dharma we stray. Tata kutsite sankate hapatanti. Immersed in deep quagmires of discord we play. Tada dushta kinna punar hyagatascha. Then weary and soiled, regaining our way. Prapanchastvaya srishta hitam tathastu. This world was thus fashioned by you, tathastu. Prapanchastvaya srishta hitam tathastu. Jayam kamayanya parajiyate cha. One hungry for triumph who suffers defeat. Jagat sandhyajan ha nirasha samohi. Renounces the world with despondent deceit. Unaf hamayan tu prayatnam karoti. But cravings return and again he competes. Prapanchastvaya srishta hitam tathastu. This world was thus fashioned by you, tathastu. Prapanchastvaya srishta hitam tathastu. Avidya sajatasya kama prachanda. All born with avidya can feel kama's roar. Tata karma sanjayate tat palancha. Such kama breeds karma and pala to store. Dhruvam janma sajnanam Yeva bhuya, which leads to rebirth with avidya once more. Prapanchastvaya srishta hitam tathastu. This world was thus fashioned by you, tathastu. Prapanchastvaya srishta hitam tathastu. Sabhikshu saraja sabheko bhichata. Reborn as a beggar, a king or a toad. Swadharma charantascha muktin yatante. We strive for contentment and shoulder our load. Tato brahma nirvanam richanti sarve. Till merging with Brahman, the highest abode. Prapanchastvaya srishta hitam tathastu. This world was thus fashioned by you, tathastu. Prapanchastvaya srishta hitam tathastu.
Well, there you have it. That was like an epic long one. That was like a Pink Floyd length. That was a long one. For some reason, it was getting me thinking about like radio channels and like how I wonder if anyone's ever thought of putting like different religious songs on one radio channel and like cycling through, trying like being as like open-minded and like accepting like all different faiths and just having like that'd be interesting to have like.
Well, I mean, we're kind of doing that with this channel in a weird experiment. And I don't know, radios are business. You know what I mean? And sometimes you'd have to really know what you were doing, I think. You know, I don't know if you do market research first.
But anyway, well done. Good little song there, or long song. Hopefully you guys liked our reaction on this one. If you guys have any comments or things you want to share, let us know down below. And if you like this, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, share this with a friend, and everyone until next time, stay spiritual.